is shining. Got to know what's going on around you. Wake up, it's the time to motivate your mind. Come with me, let's make this moment brighter. Wake up with the Bahamas and sunrise. Come on and wake up with the Bahamas and sunrise.
Good morning and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise. I'm Anastasia Palacios.
Good morning, TGIF to you. I'm Philip Simon.
And of course, it's a pleasure to be back in your company after another week of curfews and lockdowns. Certainly a week where so many things have been discussed across the nation, from our new budget to new rules regarding our release. And in addition to that, of course, seeing so many things happen with our neighbors to the north. Certainly a lot to talk about this morning. But Phil, first of all, congratulations on what I heard was an excellent webinar yesterday talking about the future of business. How did it go?
Went great. I mean, it was a great conversation with some really intelligent and bright human beings. I think what we need to do more than anything else when we do these webinars is document them in terms of the solutions that and suggestions that come out of them. I always say that when you put the right people in a room, it's powerful because we begin to feed off one another. And truly, every person who participated in that is concerned about our country. And in fact, we had somebody who's not from the Bahamas who gave a lot of interesting input. And hopefully there's a chance for people to view it again. We were talking about moving the economy forward, onward, upward together. It's a really good thing, I think, that the consuls are doing. Maybe it should be in the evening times as well. Sometimes in lunch, in the middle of the day, people are a little distracted, but certainly it's the conversations that we need to have. More are coming.
All right, excellent. Well, certainly more are coming. We've got a great lineup for you next week as well. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking about telehealth. And on Wednesday, June 3rd, we'll be examining enhancing personal finance. So, of course, if you want to register for any of those webinars, you can do so at tclevents.com. But, of course, so many other things going on there, Phil. I know you've been catching up and keeping up with what's happening in Minnesota after the death of Mr. Floyd. CNN reporters getting arrested this morning.
Literally live in front of us here. It's crazy. I mean, you turn on the television, you try to catch up with what's going on, and you're watching Minneapolis, unfortunately, being burnt to the ground as a result of you got to call it what it is. It was just a murder in front of our eyes of somebody who was unarmed and restrained. It's just crazy. So you understand how people are feeling. And the outrage, I mean, even, I'm kind of burning up inside myself because it was just absolutely uncalled for, just callous, no regard for human life. And so people are reacting, and unfortunately they are reacting probably counteractive to the results that you really want. I mean, you can protest, but, this level of, violence is expected but unfortunate. And, CNN was on the scene literally just now before my eyes, and the black reporter, etc. All of them were arrested. They're not even involved. They're blocks away from what's going on. The guy kept on asking the state patrol, "Where do you want me to go?" And without a word uttered, they arrested that entire crew from CNN. And I know that's going to be a problem.
I'm sure it will. The United States First Amendment certainly protects against that. But I can only imagine the level of frustration being experienced by both sides during this time. Minnesota's certainly not used to this level of aggression. But I think that is the challenge, that people have not been able to express themselves fully. And so at some point, the boiling point reaches the pot and things bubble over. Continuing, of course, to pray for our brothers and sisters in Minnesota in particular, but also across the United States and anywhere where people feel that they are being unfairly treated and disregarded. because I can only imagine what it's like to live that way. And we certainly here in the Bahamas can only do our part to make sure that the world marks the manner of our bearing and how we treat each other and how we honor human life. The Prime Minister, of course, making several announcements about that in the House this week. He's shared a whole lot of information yesterday. Beaches are open, but they're not.
They're not open here in New
They're
Providence.
not here. They're not open in Grand Bahama, not in San Salvador, not in Bimini, not in Eleuthera, not in Exuma, but everyplace else. So maybe I can catch a charter out to Cat Island at some point before I have this baby and finally put my toes in the water. In addition to that, of course, a very interesting budget, one that I'm sure they will examine on the Financial Voice, and I'll have to pay attention to, because I must say, to be borrowing that amount of money without raising taxes, to be enhancing pension payments, etc., without raising taxes, does leave a level of concern as to where the money will come from to pay it back. So, of course, I'm sure at some point we'll get into that here on Bahamas at Sunrise. But today we've got a great show lined up for you.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to the conversation over the next several weeks. The devil may be in the details, Star. This morning we have Reverend Willis Johnson from St. Agnes to talk with us about the meaning of Whit Sunday. Here in the Bahamas, we call it just another holiday, but they do have meanings and significant meanings. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with Reverend Johnson. Shannon Dawn Cartwright is also here to give us an update on exactly what you're talking about, Star. Public parks and beaches. I think Shannon Dawn has been doing a great job over the last several years, actually. And we'll also talk about lupus awareness with Doctors Hospital.
All right. Of course, we said we had a jam-packed show for you, and it was going to be good. In addition to that, we've got the Ministry of Tourism. They're going to be joining us to discuss the upcoming tourism business compliance training. And Doctors Hospital is back with us as well. They're talking Women's Health Month for the month of June. And so that's going to be an interesting conversation as well. Before we get to any of that, though, had some rain through the morning as I got up to get ready for the show. And of course, we want to find out from Godfrey Burnside whether or not that will last all weekend, since we can actually walk around our neighborhoods this weekend. Godfrey, please let us know what the weather looks like.
Weather at Sunrise, brought to you by Bahamas First in Insurance, today, tomorrow.
Thank you, Star, and good morning, Bahamas. Star, not a wet weekend, but towards the end of the week, Sunday night into Monday, we can expect more showers. But you'll have one or two passing showers like we had this morning, and they'll continue through the weekend. But you can walk about the neighborhood from 5 to 9. Anyhow, on your first look at weather, we do have an Atlantic high pressure across the islands. That's going to be a dominant feature for a little while, but we're watching mid-upper level trough to the south of the islands. Also a tropical wave that could enhance showers over the southeastern islands as early as tonight, early tomorrow morning, moving towards the west, across the central Bahamas tomorrow into Sunday morning, and across New Providence in the northwest Bahamas by Sunday night into Monday morning. But today, a lovely day in store weather-wise, partly sunny, still hot and humid, with a chance of a few afternoon showers, isolated thunderstorms popping up, high temperature 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, a few nighttime clouds, the chance of a few passing showers by early morning, going down to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And some region highs and lows across the Caribbean, Barbados 84 and 79. In Jamaica 83 and 73. In Trinidad 87 and 78. And the Turks and Caicos Islands 88 and 76. Across North America, Atlanta 82 and 64. In Raleigh 80 and 70. Miami 88 and 77. Dallas, Texas 85 and 65. And Toronto, Canada 66 and 56. As you go to the weekend, those spotty showers by afternoon, possibly a thunderstorm, but by Sunday night into Monday morning, we expect some increase in those shower activities with some showers and thunderstorms as that area of showers and thunderstorms move towards the northwest Bahamas. Those temperature daytime will be in the upper 80s, at nighttime in the upper 70s. That puts her up in your first look at weather at sunrise. I'm Godfrey Burnside. Bahamas at Sunrise be back after a short commercial break.
Good afternoon. First response. How can I help you?
I've been in an accident on West Bay Street. Can you send someone to help?
Yes, ma'am. A first response team will be there in 15 minutes. Are you hurt?
No, I'm fine, but a bit upset.
We're glad you're not hurt. Please, try to relax. Our team will take care of everything as soon as they arrive. First Response provides immediate on-site service and support from the scene of an accident through the claims and repair process. And it's free to all Bahamas First insured drivers in New Providence, every day for any type of accident. If you drive and want First Response on your side, call 32 First or visit bahamasfirst.com for the name of an authorized Bahamas First agent. First Response can't prevent an accident from happening.
But it can certainly ease your mind when it happens.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. Of course, tomorrow is a holiday. Now, for many of you who've been working from home, you might not recognize the difference, but this is why holidays are not just about taking time off, but taking time off for reflective reasons. Tomorrow is actually Whit Monday holidays, and we're going to be learning more about exactly what that means this morning. Very happy to welcome Reverend Felicia Johnson. She's assistant priest at St. Anne's Church. Good morning, Reverend Johnson, and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning, Bahamas. Good morning, staff.
A pleasure to have you with us on the show to be talking about something so significant. Of course, it's been several Sundays now since we've actually been in a church setting, but that hasn't changed. The fact that the church has been celebrating its feast regularly, and this Sunday is actually Whit Sunday. What is the religious significance of that?
Well, as a Christian church, the Whit Sunday, or what we would call Pentecost, is really the birth of the Christian church. And so in the Acts of the Apostles, we hear of the promised coming of the Holy Spirit upon the disciples of Jesus Christ at that time. And that event in and of itself inaugurated the beginning of the Christian movement in the Christian church. And so Whit Sunday or Pentecost is the day when we celebrate the birthday of the church.
All right. And then in terms of Pentecost, what is that in relation to Easter? For those who might not be aware of the connection there.
All throughout the world. And so at that time, the disciples, they waited behind closed doors, and 10 days later, there came the manifestation of the Holy Spirit coming and descending upon them in tongues of fire upon their heads and allowing them to speak in other tongues, thereby enabling them to become witnesses of Jesus Christ in the world. And so Pentecost takes place exactly 50 days after we celebrate Easter.
Okay. Now, in terms of the actual celebration, obviously we won't be able to go to church tomorrow, at least here in New Providence. The Prime Minister has given some leeway for some services to happen in the other islands, but here in New Providence, we won't get to go directly to church and in several of our other islands either. Traditionally, in an Anglican space, what does the Whit Sunday service look like? Is there anything special that is done to kind of acknowledge this major movement of the beginning of the church?
Yeah, well, we know within our liturgical setting for us as Anglicans and for Roman Catholics as well, that there are many colors that adorn our altars that signify for us the changes in seasons. And so Pentecost is considered the longest season within the Christian church. And so on the actual day of Pentecost, Our altars are draped in red, reminding us of the flames of fire that descended upon the disciples' heads. And so at that particular service, we have the services takes place as usual. We have the readings that come from the Acts of the Apostles that basically remind us of the events that took place on that occasion. And we have actually, one of the things that I wanted to mention is the fact that when we call it Whit Sunday, it was that traditionally, or at the Feast of Pentecost, we would have the baptism that would take place at that time. And so catechumens, they would come in dressed in white, and thus the name Whit being the English derivative of wit. And so from that, we would get the word Whit, which would be White Sunday, when they would come in and be baptized on that occasion. And so baptism, again, being the coming of the Holy Spirit and enabling and empowering one for the work of mission and ministry within the world.
Okay. So now that those services won't happen traditionally for those of us here in New Providence and several other islands, is there anything special being done online or independently within the Anglican or Catholic community that you might know of that would allow us to celebrate Whit Sunday? And if not, what should we be reflecting on personally as we observe the holiday?
As we, from the time that the lockdown began, I think all of the churches have services that have been aired online or that have been aired, broadcast on ZNS. And so as we look forward to this particular Whit Sunday, Monday holiday, I think that it gives us as a church an opportunity to look again at our beginnings and what it means for us to be empowered by God for the work of ministry that we're called to within this world. This is the first time that I think globally the churches, all of the churches have been closed. This is the first time that it's been closed during Easter, the first time that it's been closed during Pentecost. And so now it really does cause us to reflect upon our need for a fresh outpouring of God's Holy Spirit during this time to be able to lead, guide, and to direct us in order that the church may grow as a result of us coming out and as we continue to journey during this time. So if there was ever a time that we needed the empowerment that comes from Almighty God, that time is now.
Certainly, certainly. Well, you are, of course, affiliated with St. Anne's Church. Will you be conducting services starting next week once worship is permitted in the sanctuary, or are you still waiting on word about next steps for the St. Anne's community?
Yeah, well, for us at St. Anne's and within the diocese, within the Anglican diocese, we've begun making steps in that direction, but our churches will not be open this coming Sunday. We're still working out some of our protocols and the like. And so we just encourage persons to join us via the social media, to join us on YouTube and to join us on ZNS as we have our broadcasting during that time.
Well, Reverend Belisha, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning and reminding us of the importance of the weekend. Sure, a lot of people are, of course, disappointed by their inability to go to the beach. But then we remember that this, of course, is a spiritual weekend and one where we really want to celebrate and honor the gift of the Holy Spirit in our lives and what that does for us as a people and as a Christian nation. So thank you for bringing some clarity to that conversation this morning. All the best to you as you move on through these new times.
Thank you so much.
You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be back with more after this commercial break.
Business in the Box is your solution for business from Cable Bahamas. It's an internet, voice, mobile, and advertising solution all in one place. Get reliable internet, free domestic call, and a live corporate package, and free TV ad placement, all starting with packages as low as $164 a month. You can save over $3,000 a year. Just call 601-8911. That's 601-8911. And ask for Business in a Box from Cable Bahamas Business Solution. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. Very, very happy this morning to be joined by my good friend, the Executive Chairman of Public Beaches and Parks Authority. He's a Member of Parliament for St. Barnabas. He had a really mean basketball game back in the day. I think the last time I saw you was in that game between the pastors and the politicians, Shannon. Good, good to see you once again here on Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Bahamas. It's a pleasure to be here, and those were the good old days. It's better to have been than not been at all, you know?
Yeah, I tell you what, sometimes you just wake up in the morning and things change, but we're not going to talk about that here on Bahamas at Sunrise. But next week, Tuesday, June 2nd, is where some of the public parks and beaches will be opening on some of our islands. Firstly, can you give us your thoughts on the budget? And exactly what that means for your portfolio?
Well, as you would have explained, the Bahamas Public Parks and Beaches Authority of Bahamas is responsible for all of the public beaches and public parks and open spaces in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Obviously, with social distancing measures over the past few months that are now being relaxed, the competent authority has seen it fit, along with the professionals at the Ministry of Health, to open up a number of beaches throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, but still restricting some. And obviously, as we move along and the data reflects the opportunity to open up the other beaches, that will be done.
All right. And when you talk about opening up beaches, which islands, maybe it's easier to say which islands are not included. So who's included and who's not included? And is there particular hours related to it, or it's just at any point in time as long as the protocols are followed?
Yeah, so Bimini, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama, Harbor Island, New Providence, and Paradise Island, and San Salvador are not open as of that effective date that you mentioned. So all of the other beaches are open, and as you said, that what the Prime Minister would have expressed yesterday in the House of Assembly are the hours that would serve as the parameters for the usage of those beaches on the other islands, except for the ones I just mentioned.
Okay. All right. Well, I have to ask, how are the decisions made relative to which islands will open versus ones that remain closed?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, obviously the competent authority would sit with the professionals at the Ministry of Health and Department of Public Health to make the determinations based on data relative to COVID-19. Okay, some aspect of those decisions I'm not necessarily privy to. Okay, but just generally speaking, as a general criteria, the all-important data is what is dictating what is opening, what remains closed, and so forth.
All right. What is the communicated protocol for persons when adhering to going to beaches and parks?
Sorry, repeat for me, please.
The protocol, the established protocol, a suggested protocol for anybody on those islands that are allowed to go to parks and beaches.
Well, I mean, still adhering to the social distancing guidelines. Maintaining 6 feet. I think that there's no doubt that we talk about the new normal, the phrase that is going around now, understandably. And I think immediately after we get out of this, there is going to be a new normal of continuing social distancing and use of masks when we go into public areas and beaches and parks. And so, it's still going to take some getting used to, as much as we've been dealing with this for the past few months. But as expected, when you live in an open and free society, any sort of restrictions always takes a while to get used to. But I can say that I know personally I'm very proud. We're all proud of the Bahamian people and each other, because what we've been able to do over the past few months in terms of containing this virus, the Bahamian people deserves to be commended for their discipline and for their, quite frankly, love of country.
Yeah, you know what, I would agree with you on that. I don't know if it should say surprisingly so, but certainly for the most part, we have been adhering to the rules and regulations that have been passed on to us. In terms of preparation for the opening, particularly as we come to, New Providence and Grand Bahama, where more of the population is, how is your department preparing for this? It has to be an imminent opening at some point in time.
Well, one of the consequences of the limited activity on the island of New Providence, as it is in the other islands and throughout the country, quite frankly, is that it's given us the opportunity to be ready daily should the competent authority, because this is always fluid, it's dynamic. And so decisions are being made every day, as the Prime Minister would have shared yesterday. Even once we get out of this, if you will, if there's a need to go back to some form of restrictive movement, the good thing is we are prepared. And so because this has been constantly fluid, every day our team of professionals have been out in the field ensuring that the places, the open spaces are properly manicured, properly landscaped, cleaned. And so the beaches will be ready. I'm sure that there will be an influx, if you will, of Bahamians, particularly as we approach the summer. As soon as we open up, influx of Bahamians who will be flocking to our beaches. And so we're going to make every effort to make sure that everything is prepared, that we're sanitizing all of the playground equipment. And we've been doing that, and we do that constantly. And so we're going to do our best along with government departments to be ready for any eventual opening.
Yeah, I would imagine there's going to be a level of collaboration, whether there's signage, whether there's enforcement of the social distancing, as we've seen in some places in the United States, watching it live on TV at times. So I guess, like you say, more to come. We'll learn more about it. How has it been, just really quickly before we go, how's it been in St. Barnabas? Of course, you're a member of Parliament. You've been doing an excellent job down there. What initiatives do you have in place, just a little bit off the topic, for your constituents who've been in need?
Well, first of all, let me say, it's always an honor, and this isn't alien to you or many other Bahamians, but it's always an honor to serve your country and to serve each other in whatever capacity that may be. And it's truly been an honor to serve the 5,185 constituents of St. Barnabas. There are 5 separate communities within the constituency that have their own particular needs. And so we've really enjoyed the fact that we've been able to engage our constituents on so many levels. Tutoring programs, the community center, which is going to open soon as we get out of this COVID-19 situation, number of feeding programs, number of community projects. And so it's just really, really been a joy. And I get a reminder every day of the joys and the honor of being able to serve my fellow Bahamians. And so I look forward to the remainder of this particular cycle, and look forward to God's willing, the new cycle once re-elected.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you have it, Shannon Cartwright. He is the Executive Chairman, Public Parks and Beaches Authority. Well, I tell you, we just can't wait to get back in the water. He also happens to be the Member of Parliament, St. Barnabas. Shannon Don, thank you so much for joining us here on Bahamas at Sunrise.
Thank you. Stay safe.
All right, thanks. All right, you're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
We are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
Business in the Box is your solution for business from Cable Bahamas. It's an internet, voice, mobile, and advertising solution all in one place. Get reliable internet, free domestic call, and a live corporate package, and free TV ad placement, all starting with packages as low as $164 a month. You can save over $3,000 a year. Just call 601-8911. That's 601-8911.
and ask for Business in the Box from Cable Bahamas Business Solutions. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. Well, May was Women's Health Month, a time to raise awareness about manageable steps women can take to improve their health. Here to talk with us about this morning, we're very happy to welcome Dr. Laura Desrosiers, and I always mess this up, so I'm sure she's going to correct me as soon as she can. And she is a urogynecologist at Doctors Hospital. Good morning, Doc, and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
And Doc, can you announce that name properly for us, please?
Laura Desrosiers, but it's fine. A lot of people call me Laura, Dr. D.
I wasn't as far off as I thought I was, Desrosiers. Dr. Desrosiers, what would be some key things we want women to know when it comes to managing their health?
Yeah, so it's really important for women to know, first and foremost, to take care of themselves. I think, particularly in this time during the pandemic, there's a sense that, we come second, and I get it. Like, we are taking care of the children, we're taking care of our husbands, we're taking care of family members, our aging parents, or whatever it is. And so first and foremost, take a moment to take care of yourself, because if you don't take good care of yourself, then it's really hard to take care of the other people, the others that are around you whom you love. So it's really important to take care of yourself. And then secondly, don't be ashamed. If there's anything that's going on and it's not the same and things are kind of changing a little bit, ask questions. Go see someone, talk to your primary care, come see a urogynecologist. I think it's really reasonable for us to start taking ownership of our health care and not wait for things to become really at a point where it's very difficult to have an intervention for us to then go in and see someone.
All right. I think those are, of course, very important steps and ones that we need to be reminded of constantly. Our role as women being so dynamic and involving so many players outside of ourselves, that it's still important to talk about self-care in actually taking care of our health. Two of the things that we're familiar with most often is the idea and the concept. We've heard it before. Go in and get a pap smear, and of course, to make sure that we're doing our breast exams. I actually just learned recently of a person that went to high school with me that's actually only 28 but has been diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that really shook me to the core. But what are some of the most frequent times or frequent ages when we should be making sure that we are doing our pap smears and we are doing those breast exams?
Yeah, great question. So pap smears, we recommend that pap smears should be done starting at the age of 21 and through age 65. We recommend that they should be done in the earlier years more regularly. There is, I have to say that, so the practices that we have in the U.S. doesn't necessarily correlate with the practice that we're going to recommend in the Caribbean. And we have to be aware of that, right? Because access to care really matters. So even when we say, I'll say to my patients, I'll have two hats, right? My New Orleans hat when I'm practicing here, and then when I'm practicing in the Bahamas, I have to wear another hat because I have to be aware that not everybody has continuous access to care. So there is this notion that, and after 65, we don't recommend pap smears in the United States anymore. If you've had normal pap smears that have been consistent since the age of 21. Now that is many, many years of pap smears. Really after 30, we recommend going to what we call a dual pap smear, where we're actually looking at the cytology and the HPV testing. And at that point, we recommend doing pap smears every 3 to 5 years. In the Bahamas, we're still trying to figure that out. What makes sense for people? Are you on a family island? Do you have consistent access? Or is there a new partner involved? There are all of these things. So in terms of definitive guidelines, I think that we can't necessarily always use the guidelines in our neighboring countries because it doesn't always make sense for us. Going forward, I think it's really important to have a conversation. Do you have established care with your practitioner? Have you been seeing them for a really long time? And then they can sort of gauge how lax they can be once they've established that you have normal paps. The traditional pap smear recommendation for years and years have been an annual pap smear and then, of course, an annual breast exam. That is, I think, important that people know. We shouldn't be in the blind. People should know that those notions are changing. I just think it's really important to make sure that we're making wise choices for our patients based on our situation.
Okay. And then in terms of self-exams for the breast exam, how frequently should we just be checking out things for ourselves to make sure that nothing is unusual? And maybe what are some of the signs that we should look for, since we know that breast cancer is a bit more prevalent here in the Bahamas than in other parts of the world?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So I think it's very important to maintain vigilance. Doing monthly breast exams are recommended. Um, and I think that, making sure that you're doing the breast exam appropriately. There are all of these, you can go on YouTube, there are all of these websites that have really great information. The American College of Gynecologists, ACOG, has really great information on that. It's www.acog.org. There's great information on that. The American Task Force on Breast Cancer has a lot of information on that. So certainly people will be well armed to go there on that website. We do have recommendations of how to do it and when to do it. You want to do it, if you're of reproductive age, you don't want to do it while you're on your menstrual cycle, because there's some tendency to have a little bit of tenderness and a little bit of changes in the breast because of the hormones. So you want to do it 2 weeks or so after your menstrual cycle. And you also want to make sure that you're examining the full breast. And so maybe another time I can come in and I'll have a model. I have a couple of models and I can go ahead and show you what it looks like and how a breast exam should be done, how to do an appropriate breast exam, because I think that that's really important.
Now, your specialty is urogynecology. Are there specific things related to urogynecological health that we should also be looking at as women during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. One of the things that's very important for me and near and dear to my heart is the concept of continence. And so, we looked at this, we did a small study here, and we were looking at, our numbers and looking at incontinence numbers. And nationally, we know that, 40% of women by age, 40 will have some sort of incontinence, whether it's going to be urge incontinence or stress incontinence. So I think it's really important for us to understand that incontinence, although it's very common, is not normal. There is this tendency to think that as we age, we should reach a point where we're going to become incontinent. It is not normal. Hypertension is likewise very common, but not normal. So is diabetes. So making that distinction is very good. And I think that oftentimes because we think it's a normal part of aging, we're not taking the precautions that we can do or the early interventions that we can do. Another thing that's really important for Urogyn and our practice is the concept of really delving into sexual dysfunction and talking about, either is it a hypoarousal disorder or is it a decrease in libido, and not being ashamed to talk about it and really going into it with foresight and sort of seeing, okay, is it a functional issue? Is it a structural issue? And then lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't bring in prolapse. It's very important. Prolapse involves either tissue loosening of the vagina that can happen as we age. Lots of things can be sort of a precursor. Of course, we always think of a vaginal delivery, but all of those things have an impact. And I think these are sort of hush-hush areas that a lot of us don't talk about. And it's sort of my mission to make sure that we get out there and talk about it and give people help.
Well, Dr. D, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning on Bahamas at Sunrise. I think bringing a lot of those issues to the forefront that many women have just silently dealt with over the years and not addressed. But certainly we're glad that you've had the conversation here on Bahamas at Sunrise, and hope that people will reach out to you and other people in your field just to make sure that they're living as best they can, even given the conditions that they may be experiencing. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Have a great day.
You do the same. You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.
As the world is facing the global COVID-19 pandemic, Doctors Hospital has offered the Doctors Hospital West facility to be used to treat the overflow of severely ill positive COVID-19 patients and those who require treatment on a ventilator. Each room is equipped with appropriate furniture, including a bed, end tables, an armoire, a television, monitors for teleconferencing, and a bathroom. Patients will also be provided 3 meals a day while on site. We intend to keep patients as comfortable as possible during their stay. Patients will be able to teleconference with the nursing staff, their physician, or visitors from their room during the course of their quarantine. Individuals visiting patients in quarantine will be screened upon arrival at a nearby but off-site staging area. Once screened, visitors will be able to teleconference with their loved one. As the facility is in use for a national emergency, it will be secured by members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force for the safety of patients and staff. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care now. Isn't your health worth it?
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. We're at the halfway point on this Friday. I think today is the 29th, Phil. I hope so. The 29th of May, 2020. I'm at Estarcia Fallacious.
I'm Philip Simon Starr. I see you were toggling between whether it was Friday, whether it was Saturday, whether it was Sunday. But at one point you were saying tomorrow is with Monday.
Yeah, when it's like this and you've been at home for so long, you don't even know which day it is. So, I want people, though, to start to get back into the habit of knowing the days of the week. We'll finally be out of this lockdown fully by July 1. And so it's important that we get our brains acclimated to going back out into the world and knowing the days of the week. But certainly a great show so far for the morning. Excellent conversation, of course, with you and Shannon Dawn. And then I had the privilege to have two great conversations as well. One really about women's health that we don't talk about enough. And then, of course, before that, honoring the spirit of the weekend and what that's all about, the foundation at the Christian Church. So good stuff so far.
Yeah, great stuff. I enjoyed both of your interviews there. And of course, just a reminder, sometimes even in the midst of all this, we're forgetting that, it is in remembrance of the birth of the church, right? And the birth of the church. And unfortunately, on the church's birthday, they might be kind of locked out the doors. But, it also speaks to the fact that it's not just the building, right? And I think we kind of get lost sometimes in thinking that the church is a building. It's not. It's the celebration of the Christian religion, those who believe in a risen Savior. So still a very significant date and remembrance opportunity.
And I think actually it's interesting that we are experiencing it at this time because I think it reminds us of the purpose of the church, which in the beginning really didn't have doors to be in. They just happened to be in someone's home because they were afraid at the time that the Holy Spirit came, but that really was never the intent of the church as much as it was to feed the poor, to take care of one another, to spread the message of Christ and to live in love. And so any church that's worth calling itself a church is one that's very active outside of its four walls. And I think that God has actually used this time to remind us of that. So I know I certainly miss my church community, but I do know that we are so much more than just a building. And so I hope that we'll keep that in mind throughout the weekend. Of course, we got more to come in the second half, right, Phil?
And more to come. We'll be talking with the Ministry of Tourism about the upcoming tourism business compliance training. And I think this is a really great thing to be talking about. Well, okay, now what do we do? I mean, we're getting close to reopening our borders. What are the protocols? How should people be interacting? So looking forward to your conversation on that. And I'll be talking with Dr. Anishka Roll about lupus, as May is Lupus Awareness Month. Of course, a very important topic.
Of course, one of that disproportionately affects those of us of African descent, and so a really great conversation that we should be having on lupus and lupus care. Before we get to any of that, though, we do have a second look at weather with Godfrey Burnside.
Weather at Sunrise, brought to you by Bahamas First in Insurance, today, tomorrow.
Thank you, Star. Good morning, Bahamas. Yes, second look at weather at sunrise. Have that Atlantic high pressure to the north of us. And that's triggering off some nice weather over the islands. Although mid-level trough is triggering off some showers and thunderstorms across the islands this morning. happen off and on during the daytime hours, becoming more prevalent by late Sunday into Monday morning. In your marine forecast, those Wednesday blowing east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 4 feet in northwest Bahamas, 15 knots, 3 to 5 feet over the central and southeastern islands. On Saturday, across all the islands, east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 4 feet. On Sunday, those winds become variable at 10 knots or less, seas less than 3 feet over northwest Bahamas, continuing east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 4 feet over the central and southeastern islands. Your tides. You can expect a low tide at 7:50 this morning. Next high tide at 1:51 this afternoon. Low again this evening at 7:56. Sunset 7:55 this evening. Rises at 6:21. UV index 9. Your water temperature 79 degrees Fahrenheit. And the moon phase for its quarter. Your extended look. We do have a nice weekend in store weather-wise. We have partly sunny skies for the most part. With chance some showers and thunderstorms by afternoon. Then we have some showers and thunderstorms by late Sunday into Monday. Temperature daytime will be in the upper 80s, at nighttime in the upper 70s. That puts you up in your phone. Look at weather at sunrise. I'm got to go inside. Back to you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. So May was Lupus Awareness Month. Of course, it's designed to raise awareness of the condition and the impact it has on lives of those who live with it. Here to talk with us about this is Dr. Anishka Roll, rheumatologist, internal medicine specialist at Doctors Hospital. Good morning, Doc. Welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I tell you, it was probably in the back of my mind. I put on my purple without even knowing that it was just for this interview.
I know the group at Lupus 242 would be very happy. Today is put on Purple Fridays, and so like you, I myself have on my purple to help support this group, the awareness of lupus in the Bahamas.
All right, great. For those who may not know, obviously it's certainly, we hear about it all the time, but give us a brief summary, just a brief summary and overview of the disease.
Lupus is a systemic autoimmune disease that causes, that produces antibodies that affect organ tissues and causes damage to multiple organs. Some persons, lupus can be mild, but in others it can be life-threatening and lead to mortality. So the disease is very variable in that the presentation, because of the multiple organ systems involved, but it also has a lot of variation within one patient over the disease course.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, so for persons who, what is it like living with the disease, and what causes flare-ups?
Lupus flare-ups, well, living with the disease for many people, again, is specific to the degree of lupus that you have. And I must mention there are different types of lupus. There is systemic lupus, which occurs in about 70% of persons. And that is in which you have multi-organ involvement from head to toe. There's also cutaneous lupus, which is confined to the skin, and that involves 10% of patients. And the other forms of lupus, like drug-induced lupus and neonatal lupus, in which mother's antibodies are passed on to the baby, are also prevalent. So it depends on the type of lupus that you have. But for most patients, because it is a chronic disease, living with lupus is very difficult. And so it requires one combination of maintaining adequate health by one, regular follow-up with your healthcare provider, and also taking medications on a regular basis, but also adjusting your lifestyle in terms of physical activity, diet, exercise, adequate sleep. And so it does require a lot. And so this is where family members and persons in the community become significant advocates for patients with lupus.
I would imagine, those things you just mentioned, diet, exercise, rest, if not properly done, would cause flare-ups?
Right, exactly. Flares are simply, I should mention, when there's increased disease activity beyond normal or beyond the lupus patient's baseline. And typically, for the majority of patients, lupus involves typically inflammatory arthritis, so they can have increasing joint pain, swelling, stiffness, increasing fatigue, or worsening rashes, primarily for those who have more light disease. And for those persons, when there is a flare, there should always be a plan that should be coordinated with your doctor.
When you talk about a robust treatment of the disease, I would imagine it includes all of those different factors and what types of medicine?
Right. That's a good question. As we know, lupus is a disease of autoimmune dysfunction. And so what has happened is that the immune system is actually overactive, and that leads to antibodies that actually damages tissue and organs. And so these patients definitely require treatment managed care with, in particular, when we talk about medications, immunosuppressants, our go-to is systemic steroids that includes prednisone, Madrol, and the like. However, I always caution patients, and what we've seen practiced incorrectly in the past is keeping patients on these medications long-term. That should be used for management of acute flares or life-threatening diseases in certain cases, organ activity, in certain cases. But we use immunosuppressant or immunomodulating medications, and there are many. The more common ones are hydroxychloroquine, which has been in the news lately, as well as methotrexate and azathioprine. And there are newer drugs in the pipeline and for that we use that include belimumab that came out in 2011 and has been one of the latest drugs specifically approved for the use of lupus. And newer still, they are doing studies on interleukin-12 inhibitors, JAK inhibitors, and a medication called voclosporin in lupus nephritis. So we do have drugs in our armamentarium. It's just that these drugs do pose in themselves some risk because of immunosuppression, but this is what we need to do to control the disease.
Just backtracking just a little bit, talking about the disease itself. How does one know that they have lupus? I think you did mention it can be passed on, but what are the symptoms?
Right. The symptoms of lupus, again, are very many and varied, and the more common symptoms include fatigue, which is, again, non-specific. There's also significant joint involvement. For most people, that includes the small joints of the hands or feet, but there's also involvement of larger or medium-sized joints where we have the patients experience pain, swelling, and stiffness. And there's also cutaneous involvement, in particular rashes. The malar rash is pathognomonic, which is a rash that expands. Hello?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see it. A rash that expands the cheek and the nasal bridge. But most rashes, which are induced by typical like sunlight exposure, UVA, UVB light, and even fluorescent light, can cause these rashes. There's also, based on organ system involvement, lupus, for example, affecting the neurologic system can lead to seizures, psychosis, vasculitis in the brain. Most common symptoms in the lung, presentation in the lung includes interstitial lung disease, pulmonary hypertension, collection of fluids in the lung or around the heart. It increases the risk for cardiovascular disease because of ongoing chronic inflammation involving the cardiac vessels, can lead to stroke syndromes and other vascular thromboses because of a predisposition to clot. And so of course, what is most common, particularly in our population, is the involvement of the kidney with lupus, and that is called lupus nephritis. So the manifestations are protein, and definitely this is why the disease is, one, difficult to diagnose, too difficult to live with, and very complicated to treat.
Wow, wow. I mean, all of those things would also make it seem as though persons who have lupus are in the high risk category of contracting, what we're talking about today with the coronavirus.
You are definitely right about that. Most patients, or all I should say, sorry, with autoimmune diseases, in particular persons with lupus, like I said, they have immune dysfunction. They are increased susceptibility to getting any infection, but in particular, infection like COVID, which is really highly susceptible. But also, the medications that they're on also increase their risk.
Yeah. For anybody who actually, wants to learn more or have more information about this disease, where can they get it?
Well, we have awareness and education campaigns through the Lupus 242 group, and that is run under the president of Shawnee Johnson, and they're also on Facebook under Lupus 242. There have been doctors' hospital awareness campaigns as well. I podcast that is on SoundCloud and on Apple Podcast. Generally, in terms of the information available for lupus patients throughout the world, there's the lupusfoundation.org. There are multiple programs. I like the Hop Step program that's available on the internet that actually also provides health questionnaires as well as guidance in terms of education and medications for persons who desire to become pregnant with lupus and or want a successful pregnancy as well.
All right, great. So it's all out there. Dr. Roll, thank you so much for joining us here on Bahamas at Sunrise.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Take care.
Great. We've been with Dr. Anishka Roll, rheumatologist, internal medicine specialist at Doctors Hospital. We'll be right back.
One thing, two things, blue thing, bold things, things that are small, things that are grand, things that fit just right, and in the palm of your hand. Fox Hill Nursery, a large selection of garden supplies. If you can see it in your mind, you can find it at Fox Hill Nursery.
Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. The Ministry of Tourism and the Department of Public Health and Environment will be hosting Tourism Business Compliance Training in June. Here to tell us more, we're very happy to welcome Mr. Ian Ferguson. He's the Executive Director of Human Resources for the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism. Mr. Ferguson, good morning and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning, Ms. Felicius, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, especially talking about something so important, tourism business compliance training. And of course, many of us have been waiting with bated breath for our tourism part of the economy to reopen, it being connected to so many other areas of our lives. So let's begin by finding out the goal of this training. What are you hoping for at the end?
Okay, awesome. So the training is designed to assist persons who work in mainstream tourism and hospitality to ensure that there is, as the name of the training suggests, compliance across the board. And so essentially we want everyone that touches the visitor, that interfaces with the visitor in a direct way to be in full compliance with all of the health and safety, the service protocols, everything that they need to be able to know and do apply as it relates to ensuring that we are safe and that our visitors have a wonderful experience in the Bahamas that they are known for having, and that they are also safe. We do not want the Bahamas to gain a reputation for being a destination that throws caution to the wind and that allows, sadly and unfortunately, our visitors to be brought into an unsafe environment.
So this is then just specifically for those maybe hotel professionals, or is it open to people like taxi drivers, bus drivers? Who should attend this?
Okay, good. So everyone, in fact, that, again, engages the visitor in a direct way, or those persons who perhaps are not directly on a daily basis facing the customer, but at any chance just might have a visitor come into their space. We are encouraging all persons. And so we are talking about public service drivers, taxi drivers, livery drivers, omni drivers. We are talking hair braiders, we're talking straw vendors, we're talking watercraft operators, we're talking about persons in adventure site operations, we're looking at our attraction workers, our hoteliers, especially those where there is little training or reinforcement. We know that there's some of our hotel providers certainly have very rock solid training programs, universities, where they are getting this messaging out. But we certainly want to be reinforcing that with what we're doing in the Ministry of Tourism, Department of Environmental Health, and the Department of Public Health. And so all tourism ambassadors are expected to register and be a part of the training that we're putting on.
Now, is there a cost associated with that?
Okay, there is absolutely no cost. The Department of Tourism and our partners, we are absorbing the cost. And so we are providing this at no cost, free of charge. This is a compliance training where you will receive certification and permission then to re-engage in this very important business. But this does not cost the participant anything at all.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And who will be facilitating the training?
Okay, as we indicated, this is initially launched by the Department of Tourism, the Ministry of Tourism, and our industry training department, led by Mr. Kirkland Pratt, has taken the lead, and he will be our lead facilitator on behalf of the Ministry of Tourism. In addition to that, we also have partners in the Department of Public Health, as well as the Department of Environmental Health. And so we have presenters from those departments as well who will be coming alongside for this very important 90 minutes of training.
Okay, and is it a physical meeting or just a virtual one?
It's actually a blended training. We thought it best, in addition to having a virtual training, and that is obviously the main mode and medium by which we are going to deliver this training. But we also thought it best to practice what we preach and to demonstrate what social distancing looks like in the actual classroom. And so we have booked the British Colonial Hilton for the 3 days of training, June 8th, 9th, and 10th. And so the 6 sessions, morning and afternoon, we are going to have persons in Governor's Ballroom A, B, and C share in that time. Of course, because we are practicing the CDC's recommended social distancing protocols, we are going to have just a very limited number of persons. In fact, the number that they've given to us when they did the measurement is 70 per session. And so for persons who perhaps cannot or are unable for whatever reason come to or attend the virtual session, we certainly encourage them to come in person to the training that we're going to be having.
Excellent. And of course, I love the fact that you're going to use it as an example of how to actually move forward in conducting the spacing itself. So that seems really, really good. Now,
I also need to indicate, I'm sorry, Ms. Palacios, that we're recognizing all of the social protocols. So for those attending the actual session in person, the mask is required.
Of course, of course. Now, there are multiple sessions, as you said. Is it that each session is the same, and so you only need to attend one, or do people need to attend all sessions?
Okay, so all of the 90-minute sessions are the very same. The same message. Again, we want standardization and consistency across the board. And so we're looking for 60,000 plus of our service providers to attend any of these sessions. We have provided an opportunity, a platform virtually and in person for the masses to come and get this very same message. And so you only need to attend one of the sessions. Of course, we are asking persons to register so that we know who you are, we know the organization that you're associated with, or if you are an entrepreneur. And of course, we will give you at the end of the time certification indicating that you are ready to go and be a part again of this wonderful thing that we call tourism.
All right, and how can people register?
Okay, so registration is happening right now. The Ministry of Tourism is responsible for that. You can call if you are interested in the virtual session. You can email, K-Young at Bahamas.com, real simple, all lowercase. In fact, it's not case sensitive, K-Young at Bahamas.com. She will manage Khadijah Young will manage all of our virtual sessions. If you are coming in person, if you are not able, you would much rather come in person to the training, you are going to send an email to my email address, and that is iferguson@bahamas.com. iferguson@bahamas.com. For all of the persons who will be coming into the session, we will register you for one of the 6 sessions that we have. And of course, for any other inquiries, you can certainly email any of us, and we're going to add a third to that, rbarnett@bahamas.com, rbarnett@bahamas.com. Certainly, if you want to call and speak with someone between the hours of 9 and 5, Monday through Friday, you can call the Ministry of Tourism's number 302-2000, and you can speak with any of our professionals there, or they can direct you to who you need to speak to in regards to this training.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Ferguson. And of course, again, that training begins on June 8th, so you want to make sure that you register for that immediately. You can go ahead and do so now. Thank you for joining us this morning on Bahamas at Sunrise.
Thank you again for having me.
You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
Business in the Box is your solution for business from Cable Bahamas. It's an internet, voice, mobile, and advertising solution all in one place. Get reliable internet, free domestic call, and a live corporate package, and free TV ad placement, all starting with packages as low as $164 a month. You can save over $3,000 a year. Just call 601-8911. That's 601-8911. And ask for Business in a Box from Cable Bahamas Business Solution. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, thank you so much for tuning into Bahamas at Sunrise today. We hope that you enjoyed the show and found it both informative and entertaining. Of course, that does it for us today.
Yes, thank you so much. Just turning down my television, still watching exactly what's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's just been an absolute wild thing. But yes, we did have a really wonderful show today. Looking forward to doing it again on the holiday, Star. Are you?
Indeed. Phil, these days in my pregnancy, every day feels like a day that should be a holiday. So it makes no sense to me whether I'm up today or up on an official holiday. But we will certainly be back with more on Monday. Make it a safe weekend, even as you walk around your neighborhood for those of you in the unreleased islands. And for those of you enjoying sweet freedom, continue to enjoy for those of us that cannot. We will see you here on Monday.